My project is on Middle Ages England. London, formerly known as Londinium, has had many struggles, changed many different leaders, and has faced lots of death. The Vikings ruled England until Edward the Confessor kicked them out in 1013. Then, in 1066, the Normans gained control of the throne. Many kings ruled through the following years. The Black Death killed 1 in 3 people in 1348. In World War II, London suffered many bombings, so the children were evacuated to the countryside. Now London is a well-established growing city. The Palace of Westminster has a very long and rich history. William the Conqueror became King of England in 1066 during the Battle of Hastings. His son would go on to make the famous palace. Over time, the palace project was not finished, but a large great hall was. He wanted a palace greater than anything in England. It took many years, but was never completed except for a few buildings and the Great Hall. A large fire nearly destroyed the palace. There was a competition to discover who would be the next designer of the reconstruction. Sir Charles Barry won. He was able to use some of the buildings untouched by the fire and completed the project in 1870. In the United Kingdom, Parliament is their government, which is a constitutional monarchy. There are 3 parts: the Queen, the Prime Minister, and Parliament. The Queen has no power, but she can influence other people. The Prime Minister helps sign and make laws. Parliament consists of 2 different houses, the House of Lords and the House of Citizens. The House of Citizens are elected by the citizens. The House of Lords are appointed by the Queen. Both houses are referred to as Parliament. Generally, they meet at Westminster House. Royalty had lived in Buckingham Palace since 1837, until Edward Blore built the palace in 1705 for Duke Buckingham. In 1761, King George III purchased the house for his wife, but he died before his expansion was completed. His son also died before his expansion was completed as well. Queen Victoria was the first person to live in Buckingham Palace. There are many different rooms, 775 in all, which include offices, reception areas, and an enormous ballroom. Queen Victoria requested portraits of her immediate family be hung on the grand staircase. They have not moved in over 150 years. The Buckingham Palace has gone through many struggles and has seen many famous people. In conclusion, these are just a few interesting things about England. If you want to learn more, especially about castles in the Middle Ages of England, come to my table.
Hi, my name is Savannah. The country I have chosen is Egypt. When you think of ancient Egypt, you probably think of mummies, pyramids, and pharaohs, which were all very common back then. Before I tell you about all the cool stuff of Egypt, let me tell you a little bit about ancient Egypt's history. In 3100 BC, small villages were uniting into powerful and strong kingdoms. King Menes started the first dynasty. Dynasties are formed by rulers from the same families. In all of Egypt's history, there are about 30 dynasties in all. Also, the word pharaohs, aka kings, came around about 1500 BC. Egypt was invaded in 1720 BC by the Hyksos, who had horses and chariots, and easily defeated the Egyptians. Then the Egyptians learned how to ride horses and drove chariots. They soon drove the Hyksos out of their land. The Egyptians invaded other cities and built a huge empire. Now let's talk about hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics are the equivalent of today's alphabet, but for the Egyptians. They have little pictures that stand for letters that are the formal language of the Egyptians. They were written on papyrus and stone. Hieroglyphics can be read from either side depending on which side they are facing. They were amazing and really showed how smart and complex the Egyptians were. Now let's talk about my favorite, mummies. Mummies were dead people, but there are special things to mummify or how to do to make someone a mummy. First, you had to pull out the brains and organs. Second, you had to wrap the body in linens. And third, you had to let the body dry in salts for 40 days. Could you imagine being a mummifier? Being a mummy showed that you were high-ranking and special, but only the richest people could afford to be mummies. Many people paid before their deaths to get special treatment when they died, special care and extra prayer. In conclusion, Egypt is an amazing country with many great people and ideas. Come and visit my table to learn more.